This is a video to help you as you begin to make decisions for students that may be duly identified as ESOL and special ed. I'm going to talk through some of the accommodations that can be provided to students who are duly identified as they take the Access Assessment to determine their yearly language proficiency growth. There is a collection of options that are sometimes have been thought of as accommodations, but are really universal design accommodations that could be provided to anyone, not just a student who is duly identified. And those consist of special equipment, special microphones, individual or small group, frequent breaks, participating in a different format, reading aloud to self, specific seating, short segments, and also redirection of student attention as they're working through the test. And if you are wanting more information, please feel free to pause this recording and you can read any of this information that's on the screen, and that will give you further details about how this could look for an ESOL and special ed student. Now, this is the screen of choices from Enrich, and I included this so that you could see how these look. And I also tried to put the accommodations in order as we move through this presentation based on how they're listed here. And I'm going to talk about a couple of them in particular. So let me first start with the notion of, especially at the elementary school level, understanding the amount of information that may be orally delivered on the test within a regular construct. Other than the reading test, a good portion is provided in an oral environment for the elementary age students. And this is true for the online assessment. And I'm going to focus strictly on online assessment because as of the 2021 school year, the State Department has gone back and has required that everyone administer the online access assessment. So that will be the focus of all of these discussions as we move forward. You'll notice, as in Enrich, it tells you out to the side which domains that accommodation is appropriate. And so we're going to go through and talk about some of these. The first screen was going to be looking at our Braille. And with Braille, you'll notice that Braille only exists in a paper format. It is embossed with graphics provided in either contracted or uncontracted Braille. Then you'll also have that the grades 6 through 8 will have to use Nemeth for math and science items. Also, too, you'll notice that WIDA recommends that the results of the Braille assessment be used with caution since the student's proficiency in Braille may be a confounding variable. As of the 9 years that I've been heading up this program in Anderson 1, I do not believe we've had anyone ever to have to participate in a Braille administration. But if that is the case, then always please feel free to reach out to us here at the district office to make sure we are ordering the correct materials and marking this student appropriately so they can get the accommodations they need to be successful and demonstrate their language proficiency. The second option is the second one called Human Reader for Items. And this is true for listening, speaking, and writing only. Now, I want to point this out because this is oftentimes misleading, because with other assessments that our students take, Human Reader indicates that the computer will be providing the accommodation. In this case, that is not true. You notice here, I put a little star, online, this is not an appropriate accommodation. So please make a note of that. Using Human Reader for the access test will not provide the students with an oral administration in an online environment. Okay, so that is very important. We're going to talk about a couple of fields that you'll need to select if you are wanting to provide that oral administration for your duly identified student. The next one is RR, and this is the human reader for repeat of response options. Now, this is where it oftentimes can get misleading and confusing because we just said on the previous that we did not want to select that because it's not available online. However, human reader for repeat of response options is available only for listening. And notice it says that graphics only response options are not read or described. This accommodation is only for listening, and this reader may repeat listening item response options only one time. This accommodation must be administered in a way not to interfere with other test takers. And if provided in a small group, response options are read and repeated to the entire group, not individuals. So the selection of this accommodation allows the test administrator to go to the student and repeat one time the answer choices for the student. That is important. Keep in mind, this does not guarantee a one-on-one administration. This could still happen in a group setting. So this only happens for listening, and this is available for both online and paper. The next one is, once again, it says online, this is not applicable. See accommodation RA if you need to repeat audio. And this is for human reader of repeat items. And so this option, RI, is not very helpful if you feel like you need to select human reader for repeat of items. Then it must be the RA accommodation that we're going to talk about in just a few moments. Okay, this is only for paper pencil. Okay, so we're back to that notion that human reader is only for paper pencil. Now, here we go. We're going to go back to human reader for response options. And this is for listening only. This option is one that we would want to select in order for a student to have an oral administration of listening. Now, bear in mind, the test construct for listening is predominantly oral. Students hear spoken word through the computer. They answer a question based on what they heard over the computer. This accommodation allows for students to have the response options read to them. Okay, and it does not count for any graphic response options or anything that's in the passage or what the question. This is only for the options, answer choices. And this, once again, has to be given in a way so it doesn't interrupt other students. And this is really good for an accommodation for our friends that have trouble reading, printing, and sometimes focusing on attention. So that kind of gives you a framework of where this could be helpful. This is our next one, sign language. They provide a sign language accommodation for all 4 areas on the access assessment. Once again, this has not been utilized in our district before. If you have questions, please feel free to contact us here at the district office, and we can help you work through those questions that may exist if this was the case for your student. The next is large print. We have within the online platform an embedded magnifier. We also request that if someone is using a larger print accommodation for the access test, let us know so we can make sure they get the proper sized computer monitor and that is very helpful. You'll notice this talks about this does not happen for the kindergarten test. And that is telling us that large print is available only for Access of L's paper and kindergarten. So we would have to order a special kindergarten assessment set of materials in order to use large print for a kindergarten friend. Now, this is one of those accommodations that will help ensure your student gets as close to an oral administration of the full assessment except reading as possible. This one is a very popular choice, manual control of item audio. So how this works is the student opens their test, they get their question, and it does not start reading. The student has to select the play button for the reading of the items to begin. And this is very helpful for students who may need just a little bit of help with attending, focusing on what the task at hand. This helps them focus. Okay, I'll hit play, let's go. That helps them. This accommodation can be, it tells us that it allows the play button to be enabled and activated by the student one time. Once initiated, though, we cannot pause it. Okay, and that's going to come in play with this next piece that's coming up. Okay, our next one is repeat item audio. You'll notice this is the same as like what we just saw on manual control. The student will hit play and they can repeat the item over if they need to hear it again. Now, listening is very specific. The student can only repeat once. Now, remember, when we looked at our accommodations a few moments ago about one of the human reader options, and it said select accommodation code RA, this is it. Because if you select this accommodation as an option for the student, they have the ability to listen to the item and then hit repeat on the listening test. And so that is very important. And this is a great little tool that a lot of students can really benefit from. Okay. The next one is RD, and this one is using a recording device. So let's say that the student is needing their test to be transcribed. You would put this option for the student, and they would just speak their answers, and then it would ultimately be transcribed into the testing platform. Scribe, same type of thing. This is for our students who may be nonverbal or they use a device such as an assistive communicative device, eye gaze, gesturing, pointing. And so this is a very viable accommodation for some students. You'll see that it is available for all domains except speaking. And so that area, the student, if they were using this for participation in the areas of listening, reading, and writing, it would not be applicable in speaking. Okay. The next is if they use a word processor or a special device to help them with taking notes or writing. This is where that accommodation will come into play. And then you have two options here. That first one is extended testing time over multiple days. So for instance, if a student becomes easily flustered or struggles with being able to manage time effectively, you could divide the domains into multiple days. As the test stands, it is not a timed event where the students have to complete within a certain time and then it stops. As long as students are making progress, they can continue with the test. So this accommodation is probably used in just very few circumstances. The next accommodation listed here is very important for our friends that have a speech-only IEP. Our speaking test in the online platform is set up so that the students hear a prompt and then the computer tells them after the beep, please speak your response. At the end, a beep will happen to indicate the end of your response time. So the students only have a finite amount of time to respond to the prompt. And it's a self-paced test, so it moves them through at a predetermined rate. So a student who may have a speech-only IEP may, and also to students who struggle with production and with processing disorders, may find this accommodation very helpful, because what happens is it lengthens the amount of time between the beeps for the student to record their question. And so just to give you an idea, this is a great little accommodation. You'll see it only applies to speaking, and it is definitely something I would recommend for you to think about with your students that have those spoken obstacles. So let's just keep that in mind. Now, this kind of gives you an overview of the accommodations that can be provided. At this time, I would like to just pose a couple of thoughts. If you are looking to establish an online oral administration for your dually identified student, I would recommend the following. 1, repeat response options. That is the accommodation RR. I would also recommend repeat item audio. That is RA. I would also recommend human reader response options, and that would help with listening. And then manual control of item, MC. So the combination of those 4 accommodations will establish the student to take a online oral administration of listening, speaking, and writing Access English Proficiency Assessment. If you have questions, please feel free to let me know. I'll be glad to help. And just feel free to let me know of any questions. And I hope this video is helpful as you're beginning to write those IEPs for next year. And I just thank you for your time and have a great day.